This little spider just might be a new species. We're pretty sure that nobody has ever seen it before. We discovered it by accident because it's almost invisible. We were following an ant to test out a new macrophotography lens when we noticed that something moved when it was bothered by the ant. But it disappeared in an instant. Maybe it's a species that's in danger of extinction. Or perhaps it will turn out to be quite abundant. Given its ability to camouflage itself, it's practically undetectable. And that's why we don't know anything about its biology. Such are the lives of many species of spiders. They're unknown and undervalued. And the balance of the world's ecosystems depends in large measure on these surprising little beings. Spiders are not insects. Insects have 6 legs. Spiders have 8. And they don't have antennae. Insects and spiders are 2 very different lineages of arthropods that parted ways evolutionarily hundreds of millions of years ago. The 2 zoological classes are closely linked, however. One of them eats the other. Ants are social animals, and that makes them a superior sort of organism. And they are certainly able to kill any spider, no matter how big it is. Army ants are especially aggressive. This pink-toed tarantula is surrounded by columns of army ants called raids. It must be near the swarm's nest, and it can't find a path to get away from the danger. It's only a matter of time before they locate it. Although the ants aren't in foraging mode, they could very well interpret its presence as a threat. And many larger, stronger, and faster animals than this spider are sliced up and eaten in seconds by army ants. That's it. The spider headed in the wrong direction and crossed the ant's path. And they've detected it. But the spider has 2 extraordinary defensive systems. The hairs that cover it prevent the ant's mandibles from penetrating its exoskeleton easily. while it also knows the perfect strategy: akinesia. The spider knows that if it stays still, absolutely still, then it won't be interpreted as a living being. When it feels that the ants have lost interest in it, then it will try to run away. With just 2 exceptions, the other 34,000 species of spiders that we know of are poisonous. Although of these, only 5 genuses have ever killed a human being with their venom. Aphrax, Hadronychi, Latrodectus, Loxosceles, and Phoeneutria. It's not easy to say which species of spider is the most dangerous in the world. By all indications, the Phoeneutria, the Brazilian wandering spider, has the most potent toxin. Although, contrary to the others, this fearsome hunter may not inject its venom if it bites in self-defense. That's called a dry bite. The objective of a dry bite is to save venom. The Phoeneutria uses its toxins only to hunt. Right now, however, this giant cockroach has nothing to fear. Luckily for him, he's run into a male Phoeneutria during the breeding period, when it's looking for a mate, not food. The spider even raises its legs, with their colored stripes, as a warning sign. This is one of the most dangerous spiders. The terrible effects of its venom can reappear even years after having been bitten by this species. And some people have died as long as 2 years after being bitten. It's a very prolific species, and it's all around us, even in our homes. It's the Loxosceles laeta, or Chilean recluse spider, and it's originally from South America. It has a dark marking shaped like a violin on its cephalothorax. But from a distance, it looks just like any other brown spider. Although there are exceptions, the biggest spiders are the ones least in need of potent toxins. The enormous tarantulas of the world's tropical regions have such long, strong, and sharp chelicerae that they can kill their prey almost without the need for poison. The juices they inject are more a pre-digestive tool than a weapon to hunt with. These spiders even prey on small vertebrates when they find them. Nonetheless, that's the exception, not the rule. And the shell of a turtle isn't easy to perforate. The 34,000 known species of spiders eat mostly insects. That makes spiders our best ally in the fight to survive on the planet. Mosquitoes are a major vector for the transmission of illnesses. And they cause the greatest number of infections in pandemic diseases like malaria. Mosquitoes are to blame for the deaths of millions of human beings each year. And so are flies. Millions of human beings survive thanks to the spiders that eat them. Some spiders catch their prey 2 by 2. This is a Euloborus, one of those extremely rare spiders that has no venom at all. It kills its prey by bundling them up at great speed, wrapping them to death with more than 140 meters of unbroken thread. This is the black widow from the Mediterranean region, Latrodectus tredesimgutatus. There are also black widows in the Americas, Africa, and Australia. Its venom is alpha-latrotoxin, a poison that is 15 times stronger than rattlesnake venom. Its popular name, black widow, is due, as we shall see, to the fact that if they can, they eat their mates. This female has been building her web for 2 days, and she uses it to hunt, for shelter, and also as a love nest. It looks chaotic. It's hard to see any geometry or order in this web. But maybe we just don't know how to look at it. This male feels attracted to her. His pedipalps are loaded with his genetic material. He's very excited, but he'll have to watch his step if he doesn't want to get eaten. The males of this genus have a very difficult time surviving the sex act. But they've developed some amazing techniques to do so. In Australia, these tiny playboys tie the legs of their mates with silk to keep from being devoured. And apparently the males also do that in North America. This one is very carefully eating all of the female's web. He even weaves some of his own threads so he'll have a better chance to escape. But after several hours undoing his mate's work, the moment of truth has come. Obviously, he did something wrong. There are many kinds of spider webs. This species makes a straight line with remains of food, drawing something like a fine twig that you can land on if you're a fly. But it's a trap within a trap. One of the most surprising facts about these little animals is that they're able to fly. The spider's threads of silk keep them up in the air. If the threads are long enough, they can stay suspended in the air currents indefinitely. They can fly up to altitudes of more than 2 kilometers, sometimes even crossing the ocean. To land, they take in the thread and slowly drift down until they reach the ground again. Spiders fly as a way to spread out over the land, especially young spiders. It's an adventure without a specific destination, only the aim of getting as far away from their parents as possible so as not to compete with them for food or other resources. Their skill is reduced to letting out or taking in more thread. And sometimes the largest species handle threads over 5 meters long with their feet. When a spider is getting ready to fly, it looks for a spot high up to avoid any obstacles. It checks the strength of the wind and calculates how long the tail of its kite should be. Finally, it waits for the air to attain the right speed for its plans. And when it sees things clearly, when it feels that the tension of the thread is strong enough to bear it, it lets itself be swept away. Many ends of thread stay attached to rocks and branches, evidence that they've been used as launching platforms. In the season when spiders spread all over the land, any little twig high up can become a takeoff point. And at that time, looking against the light reveals the countless number of spiders that have taken off in flight. Before becoming a tool for flight or for hunting, the silk that spiders make began as a building material. A material to improve the primitive holes they lived in. Many spiders live in holes lined with silk, although very few of them have such well-camouflaged doors. What's more, trapdoor spiders leave several building threads scattered on the ground around their lair. And they use them to detect the presence of their prey. This is a six-eyed sand spider. It belongs to the genus Sicarius, an awful Latin word which in Roman times meant a murderer who used knives. It's too clumsy a name for such a sophisticated hunter. It's very fast. And it buries itself. Invisible beneath a millimeter of sand, it waits for its prey, very patiently. As we've seen, spiders are beings whose behavior and abilities can astound us, and they are essential to maintaining the balance in the planet's ecosystems. But the truth is that to appreciate them, you have to look beyond appearances. In the opinion of 99% of the human population, these animals aren't very agreeable to look at. Most people think that besides being dangerous, they're ugly. But what is beauty? It's a human standard that establishes criteria that have nothing to do with the needs of these beings that are so different from us. We like animals that share a little more of our genetic makeup. Ones that at least have a few expressions that we can understand. Looking someone in the eye is almost like seeing their intentions. But what can we see here that we can understand? Nothing. Nevertheless, we have more in common with them than we think. Above all, we share solutions to biological problems. We've resolved some problems by arriving at the same conclusion. For example, humans and spiders are both masters of geometry. Although we do have very different intellectual skills. We have to learn everything, while they do everything by instinct from the day they are born. This is the first hunting web of an ordinary spider. It's almost a newborn that still hasn't eaten anything on its own. But its web won't improve over time or with more experience. It wove the web following its instruction manual, which has pages from the manuals of both its father and mother. But it won't change anything from here on out. If it's successful as an individual, it will grow and reproduce. If not, it will starve to death. It hasn't started out particularly well, but that's not because of the technical disorder of the web. Everyone in its species makes their web this way, more or less. Spirals are on another level of geometry. This is a huge old argiope. Thanks to its color pattern, it's also called a wasp spider or tiger spider in some parts of the world. Now that the sun is set, it goes into motion. It's beginning to weave a new web. The previous one lasted 2 nights. And in the end, it was successful, as is obvious from its fat belly. But its web is in pretty bad shape now. Useless. It eats all the remaining silk, since silk is a very expensive biological material for it to make. The spider's body will recycle 90% of the substance, turning it back into silk again to make a new web. The first phase of construction is to lay down threads along the perimeter that will delimit and support the structure. Spiders have an incredible sense of space. They are able to visualize the largest warped surface that fits between the support points that each twig offers them. Once the web has been positioned, it weaves the radial threads. These threads don't have any glue on them, and are the ones that the spider walks on without getting stuck like its prey. The spider now weaves a hanging thread in the center of the web. It's made with a very fine new thread, and it's not sticky either. It's made with a different type of silk and a different technique that doesn't tense it and that cushions the impacts of its prey so that it can react while maintaining its balance when the time comes. Finally, the spiral. These are the threads that make up the final mesh. Each thread on the spider web has a specific function, and only these threads are impregnated with glue, tiny regularly spaced drops to prevent their prey from getting away. The spider will barely touch them. And it even has an oily coating on its legs that keeps it from getting trapped along with its victim. The size of the openings in the mesh isn't random. The distance that the spider leaves between the threads in the grid is determined by the spider's recent experience regarding the prey that are most plentiful in its habitat at this time. If there are more butterflies, the threads will be further apart than when flies are the most numerous. Spider silk is made of proteins that are formed on a molecular level so that they are both elastic and durable. The patterns of these lovely works of engineering are repeated all over the world wherever there are insects. Tens of thousands of species of spiders have arrived at the same design for the perfect trap. Or almost perfect. In nature, nothing is perfect. Even spider webs have their flaws. When they get wet, the glue spread over the threads loses some of its properties and no longer holds the prey fast. The spider will have to build a new web, or perhaps wait until the sun comes out, the water evaporates, and the trap starts to work properly again. Nonetheless, it looks like it will be some time before the good weather returns. The rain doesn't affect all spiders equally, among other reasons, because not all of them use webs or sophisticated traps to hunt. The crab spider's hunting technique only requires there to be enough warmth for the insects to be actively pollinating the plants. Crab spiders don't build anything. They've turned the flowers into their traps. They stalk their prey very stealthily, wearing the same color as the flower they're hidden in, and they are exceptionally strong and quick, just like their venom. The spiders of the Salticidae family don't build webs either, nor holes. They don't even use flowers to help them catch their prey. The jumping spiders, as they're popularly known, are so quick that they can trap their victims by pouncing on them by surprise. To do that, they need not only blazing speed, but very specialized eyesight. And they have it, the best among all the arachnids. Visually, they pay close attention to everything going on around them, because you never know when it's time to eat. But it's not food, but rather another jumping spider that shows up. Unfortunately, it's of the same sex, and jumping spiders are very territorial. striking war paint marking its face and body are proof of that. The best intimidatory tactic is to raise their forelegs as high as possible to look taller and more threatening. Although that's not always enough. The action is very quick, and the loser immediately withdraws, possibly with a lethal dose of poison in its body. That's the cost of not obeying the visual signs. Intimidation is effective for spiders sometimes as a defensive tactic, but raising their legs won't help them to escape from the attack of a possible predator, especially if it's big and fast. The basic defensive strategy of spiders is to hide, to go unnoticed. To get away from danger, certain species are able to hide underwater. Some have even learned to live and hunt in water. Many animals, including man, consider spiders to be a very tasty morsel. Tarantulas are clearly the most appetizing because of their size. And maybe that's why they've gone to more trouble to develop a defensive strategy, and some of them don't even hide. They've invented an active defense system. If someone big enough comes more than close enough, they rub their legs against their abdomen and shoot a cloud of irritating hairs. This cloud spreads quite far, and if just one of these hairs is sniffed up by a muzzle, it causes a very disagreeable reaction. Everything itches, and it can even cause asphyxia. It's very effective. Spiders are hairy creatures, and tarantulas are the hairiest. But their lives depend on that hair. Thanks to that hair, they can sense their surroundings. It's like a laboratory that filters and processes all kinds of information. They perceive microcurrents of air, electrical fields, and of course, their mates and their moods. The mating rituals of tarantulas, like those of the black widows, also involve a considerable risk. A risk of cannibalism. When two tarantulas meet up, it's understandable that they're very nervous and that their hypersensitive hairs are standing on end. Just in case. In a fraction of a second, what seemed like a lover could turn into a predator or prey. Recognizing each other at first glance is crucial, but it's not that simple. So before they actually touch each other, both of them have to take 1,001 precautions. Drumming as a courtship ritual is a communication technique that, on the one hand, allows them to discover if the other spider belongs to the right species. Once they have confirmation that they speak the same language, they can try to figure out the attitude of the approaching spider. The male is the one that has to take the initiative, and whether he's successful or not depends mostly on whether he is able to deactivate his mate's hunting instinct. One way is to rapidly and constantly caress her with as many feet as possible. While always keeping his guard up, blocking any potential attack by his lover with her chelicerae. The hypnotic effect of slow movements that keep his mate still can also do the trick. The aim is to manage to keep her still for a few moments, long enough to get underneath her and use his pedipalps to introduce the sperm that he's carrying in a little bag of silk. There's a hole in her abdomen. He can't see it, but he feels it. And now's the time. Done. Now, the best thing is to get away from there. The reproductive task is complete, and he can try again another day or another night. A spider's pregnancy tends to be short. It varies a bit according to the family, but they are all oviparous. That is, the embryos develop inside the eggs, already outside of their mother's body. This long-legged species of spider is found all over the planet in wet, dark places. Its spread and demographic success speak of its ability to adapt, which is due in large measure to its reproductive potential. This one is tired, but its efforts have only just begun. Now it's biting the egg sac where it has placed the most silk, and it will hold the ootheca in its jaws for another month. It won't let go of it for any reason, not even to eat or drink. Many spiders are selfless mothers. Many die when their children are born and become their children's first meal. But that's better than the reverse. This spider has not only waited for the birth of its 100 children, now she will carry them on her abdomen for another 2 weeks or so to defend them and to give her offspring and her species more opportunities. So it is that the little spiders gradually get off wherever their instinct tells them to. And so the mother manages to spread her young over a much larger territory than they could reach on their own. This way, the siblings won't compete among themselves for food. And the mother won't run into them again in a few days when they've forgotten that they're her descendants. If you're a newborn spider, you begin your life surrounded by danger. To start with, your own mother is going to stop recognizing you very soon, and suddenly. What prevents them from killing their own children isn't something emotional. We can be pretty certain that spiders don't feel at all maternal. Their behavior is governed by hormones. Hormones which, among other behavior, inhibit the feeling of hunger and the instinct to hunt in adults, but which only have an effect during the first few days after the eggs hatch, for as long as the family lives together. These young spiders should get away from their mother now. They'll have to fly away soon, starting another new and marvelous cycle of arachnid life. There are still thousands of species of spiders left to discover, and with them, we will find new possibilities for medical and scientific applications for their silk and venom. We still have a lot to learn. We just have to look a little beyond the surface of things. Because with these surprising and homely beings, looks are deceiving.